I think this has kind of been a process for us since we've arrived here, right? We've kind of just chipped away at it, really tried to, get into the high schools, get in the communities, and put an emphasis, obviously, on the state of Kansas, Kansas City.
Hello and welcome to a special National Signing Day edition of the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on the Kansas City Sports Network. I'm Kevin Flaherty. I'm here as always with my good friend Ryan Wallace, and we're talking about the world of local recruiting, from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the college classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. In this episode in particular, we'll be focusing in on the Jayhawks signing class, and we'll be joined by Kansas General Manager Rob Ianello to talk about the Jayhawks signees. And stick around for the end of the episode when we'll break down the three Kansas City area high school teams playing for state championships on the Missouri side of the state line this weekend. If you like what you're hearing, comment below, tell your friends about us, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a review, a 5-star rating, wherever you get your podcasts like Apple or Spotify. We have our own specific audio channel through KCSN on Apple and Spotify, so you can seek us out there. As always, we appreciate you guys helping us to grow and getting us in front of more people like you. Kansas signed 17 players today, ranking as the number 56 class on 24/7 Sports. The Jayhawks didn't add anyone unexpected today, but they did lose a commitment with talented Jenks running back Katie Jones flipping back to Oklahoma State, where he was initially committed when the staff at Oklahoma State got fired, wound up flipping to Kansas. Now he's back at Oklahoma State. Good luck to Katie Jones with his career. He's a heck of a football player. We've talked about him on the show. It's a blow, Ryan, for Kansas, and we've talked about how much we really like him. But I think when you look at this class in general and sort of looking at brass tacks and the headlines, it's Kansas stepping up its efforts locally to the extent that we just haven't seen in recent memory. Of Kansas's 17 signees, 6 hail from the state of Kansas, 2 more come from the Missouri side of Kansas City.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously, you talk about local guys and you can't not talk about JJ Dunnigan.
Yeah.
But again, I like your point there because you have to start somewhere, right? Like you can't just be doom and gloom all the time in a class where KU has gone out and done what everybody's kind of been wanting them to do for a long time, which is win the state. And they did. And you can talk and have debates with my K-State brethren about whether, the guys were worth, both the schools fighting over whatnot. You and I have seen all these kids.
Yeah.
There's some really good players from this state that are going to be in Lawrence for the future. So the kind of comparison that I will talk about as we get into the overall class for KU, and you and I kind of mentioned it yesterday and later today when the Katie Jones decommitment became reality. You can still have, this is going to be a bad kind of analogy, but I was trying to think of something with food. Like this is still, this class for KU can still be like a really good piece of cake, right? You could have the cake part just be terrific. It's just missing the icing now. So it's not going to be as good of a cake as you were expecting or the best cake you've ever eaten, right? But like the body could still be there. That's a terrible analogy. Surely there's another food analogy out there that makes more sense. But you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
there's still a lot of developmental upside in this class. You just don't have maybe that star-studded freshman that you went in a couple weeks ago saying these guys can spearhead this class on offense and defense and electrify it and be the leaders while the rest of the class kind of progress behind them. But that doesn't mean the guys behind them can't be really strong players for years to come for Lance Leipold and company to build around.
Yeah, actually, when we had Lance Leipold at his press conference earlier today, Jordan Gusky at the Topeka Capital Journal asked him if any of these guys would play as freshmen. And, Lance Leipold said, I'm not really comfortable answering that question. And he would have said that regardless. Mm-hmm. But like from our standpoint, where we do project that and we do look at that stuff, JJ Dunnigan, Katie Jones, guys like that are guys that I think we would have said, hey, these guys are guys that are going to star at Kansas. They're probably going to play sooner rather than later. And that's not to say that nobody from this class will do that. It's just not immediately apparent who that person will be.
Right.
I think that's maybe a little bit of the difference with it. Like you said, some really good players, just not maybe that immediate impact. Like this guy is a no doubt, he is going to be a star right away from the second he hits campus type of guy, because I really do think that those were the kinds of players that JJ was. I would have been surprised if JJ didn't play a major role as a freshman, or Katie Jones, who I think would have absolutely hopped into that running back rotation and maybe even started as a freshman as well. And so with all of that out of the way, let's get a few superlatives out of the way. And
Sure.
Starting with the highest ranked recruit to sign with Kansas, there is a consensus number one in this case, unlike Kansas State, which had different guys at different recruiting services. And that's Salina Central offensive tackle Caden Snyder. He's a 4-star prospect in the 24/7 Sports composite. 24/7 Sports ranks him as the number 28 offensive tackle in the country. Without spoiling next week's episode, where we'll be revisiting our Kansas rankings, Caden is a guy that I would expect for us to move up significantly from where we previously had him.
We've said it a lot on the show. I think we were hard on Caden early. I certainly wanted to see him kind of earn it and step up from the player that I saw at K-State O-line, D-line camp 2 summers ago or whatever. He did that and more. I mean, so much so that he helped lead Salina Central to a 5A state championship this last week. So again, his senior tape, it's like, now I'm getting why this is the player that everybody was projecting. You and I were just waiting to see it. Now you're seeing it. He has been physical. He's always been one of the most athletic linemen in this class in the state, bar none. But now he's put the physicality, the muscle, he's added the weight. You're just seeing him barrel over guys. And you're not even really seeing him at what you and I probably would consider his strength, which is going to be pass pro.
Yeah,
I think that is where he's going to make, the early money. And then, as Coach Alpulsa and those guys get the more weight on him, Vandersleeve gets the muscle on him, then you're going to see him do a little bit more of what we just saw in those clips at the college level. He's really come into his own. And again, now this makes sense why the industry has always seen him and finalized him as a composite 4-star, something that K-State does not have in their class.
It's interesting because you mentioned the K-State camp and talking to Caden and getting to know him a little bit. He had played basketball. He had a little bit of an illness. But when we saw him there, Ryan, we saw a kid in a Salina Central helmet working out, with the pads and stuff. And we thought, oh, Caden Snyder brought a teammate. That's cool. I wonder who this kid is. And, I think one of the coaches yelled at something like, hey, Caden, do this. We didn't recognize him because of how small he was at that point. He was in the 230s at the time. Caden Snyder started this year at 305 pounds, just 2 years later. When I saw him in person at the start of the playoffs, he said he was about 295. Like you said, he's already got the frame and the strength that's only going to get better. And the weight's going to transfer and all those things under Gildersleeve. I really think that he's a guy that does have a really high ceiling, and it's in a program that I think they're really looking for good young linemen that they can kind of build around as foundational pieces. And I think Caden can kind of be that guy.
Well, and one last thing is I think the nice thing about Caden Snyder is if he works at tackle, great. If he doesn't, I still think he'd be a hell of a guard. I think you're looking at a player that you can kind of move as a chess piece around the offensive line, wherever he's best suited and wherever his strengths end up being strongest. And I would expect Lance Leipold to do that. And Caden, I think, is a smart enough player where he'll be able to pick up the different nuances at each position outside of probably center.
Let's each pick a player that we really like in this class. And while we talked about losing Jones at the 11th hour and how that stings,
doesn't sting me.
That sting is mitigated a little bit because, Ryan, you believe Kansas got another really good running back in this class.
Doesn't sting me because I am team Corey Mockery, man. I think that this guy was getting kind of slept on because of KD Jones even beforehand. I think, as the class built, it felt like he kind of just, I don't want to say got left, but it's like, again, the new shiny objects came along and people forgot how good Corey Mockery is. I mean, this guy, again, is kind of built like a Greek god as a running back. I mean, he moves unlike you should at his size. I think he can find a crease and get skinny and then burst. But he's also the type of guy that when you watch his huddle tape, you're going to need 2, 3, 4 defenders to bring him down. And I think this is where he's really starting to emerge too, is as a pass catcher. Watch this catch right here, the hand-eye coordination. And then, again, you're going to need more than that to bring him down. I think he's got enough juice when you pair him with like a Justin Thurman that can be a little bit more of your wheels. I think Corey Mockery can be an every down back for the Kansas Jayhawks. I think he's already built there. I think he's got the work ethic. When you go and you look, kind of scope around his social media a little bit, he's a kid that's focused in all the right ways. I think academics won't be a problem for him. I'm high on Corey Mockery, man. He's made me kind of a Kansas fan. I'm rooting for him in that regard as a Corey Mockery guy. I just realized that's probably going to get clipped in the future. So, they'll take the Corey Mockery part out and that's fine. But anyway, I like what KU is getting with Corey Mockery. I just feel like, Kevin, he is a well-balanced, well-rounded running back that, again, kind of fell beneath the cracks, so to speak, because of all the KD Jones hype.
I was torn between a pair of in-state guys here because I think Lawrence's Josh Galbraith is wildly underrated because of the athleticism that he brings. When I say he's as athletic as any linebacker in the country, that's not hyperbole. Like, the testing numbers would back that up. But I'm going to go with another in-stater in Mays South, Hunter Higgins. We saw Hunter together in person a year ago, and I thought the 89 rating, which is basically the highest 3-star rating, was probably pretty appropriate. Then you come to find out he was dealing with a vertebrae injury. And when I saw him this year against Salina South, I thought he was trimmed down. I thought he looked quicker. He was more decisive and varied with his pass rush. And I think he's somebody that is really going to blossom under Kansas strength coach Matt Gildersleeve.
Yeah, I mean, you see the burst that he has there to block that punt and a little bit of the length. I mean, he is every bit of what he's listed at. The burst has come back in his senior tape, but we also saw a little bit of this from like his junior tape, right, and his sophomore tape of just the physicality to just barrel over guys. I think, so long as he stays healthy, they're going to kind of up his arsenal and all the different technique things that he can do. He's already pretty good with his hands. Again, good, strong base. This is a kid that, again, I talked about the well-roundedness of a Corey Mockery. I think Hunter Higgins is a well-rounded defensive end that, you could leave out on the field. He's not going to be a guy that's going to leave the field because it's 3rd and long or, you need a pass rusher guy in there. I think Hunter Higgins is the type of guy that can stay on the field no matter the down and distance.
It's funny, Kansas, has those before and after pictures a lot of times that they show from the start of their freshman stuff in the winter for the guys that enroll early in that spring semester up until the start of the season. You could almost call it the Jalen Todd Award for a guy that just puts on weight and looks totally different a few months later. Adrian Hawley is another guy that had a similar thing. If I had to pick one guy in this class that is going to look vastly different from a body standpoint heading into August than he does right now, it might be Hunter Higgins.
I don't doubt it.
If we're going to pick a sleeper here, Ryan, when we discussed this off air, we kind of focused on a pair of Texans here. Pearland linebacker Joseph Credit was a guy we talked about on the show with Greg Powers of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, with Greg opining that Credit has all Big 12 potential. But I also really like your suggestion of Denton Geyer's Corbin Glasgow, who's coming in as a wide receiver, but could have just as big an impact on special teams.
Yeah, and if we're going to go sleeper, well, I think, again, Greg Powers said some great things about Joseph Credit. And then, again, Corbin Glasgow continues to just kind of sift to the bottom. And I do mean the bottom. He's second to last according to the ratings in this class. And something, Kevin, strikes me about this kid making an impact sooner rather than later for the Kansas Jayhawks. Speed kills. And Corbin Glasgow has so much speed. I mean, over the top constantly. But I think, too, you're going to be able to get him as a gadget player in situations like this where you can, again, use his speed, get some blocking, and get him daylight. He should be caught right here. Watch him turn it on again. Look at these two guys, and they don't even get a finger on him, because his jets, he just propels past people with the acceleration. And again, Kevin, he's doing it at I think the highest classification in Texas, and he's been doing it at the highest classification in Texas for a really, really loaded Denton Geyer team. I just think, look, folks that are watching this for the first time, I'm the K-Stater on the show. The K-Stater in me is, I've seen this happen too many times, right? Where it's like you count out the little guy, the Tremaine Thompson, the Phillip Brooks, and then they become something because there's just something about them that you can't replicate. And I think Corbin Glasgow has the frame, even though it's slender, he's compact, and he's got the acceleration that you just cannot, put in anybody else. Like, there's just something that's going to be special about him to the Kansas Jayhawk offense and special teams. I just feel like there's going to be a way that they're going to be able to utilize. At first, it's the speed. And then I think over time, they're going to realize, oh, yeah, this kid's a really crafty wide receiver as well that we can also use to get vertical.
10.33 100-meter time as a sophomore in high school. So he can absolutely burn it. And to your point, if you're looking at him to play early, he can be in it on gadget stuff. He may be a guy that you take a look at on kick return, pretty much from the second he hits campus. He's got a lot of different ways to find success early on in his career at Kansas.
Really good value for Corbin Glasgow.
We'll be right back with Kansas General Manager Rob Ianello on the Verbal Commitment Podcast after this.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Welcome back to the Verbal Commitment Podcast. We're joined by Kansas General Manager Rob Ianello, fresh off the Jayhawks signing a strong 17-man recruiting class. Rob, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me. Excited to join you.
You guys have talked pretty much since Lance has arrived about the need to do really well locally, right? And for the most part, that's centered around the state of Kansas, but also into Kansas City. And you look at this recruiting class, you have 6 guys from the state of Kansas, 2 guys from the Missouri side of Kansas City. Why did you guys do so well locally in this class? What do you think led to that?
I think this has kind of been a process for us since we've arrived here, right? We've kind of just chipped away at it, really tried to, get into the high schools, get in the communities, and put an emphasis, obviously, on the state of Kansas, Kansas City, and Kansas City, Missouri, right? That's been huge for us. And, we've kind of had some growing pains with it, candidly, right? When we first got here, maybe some guys had grown up, kind of maybe having a different type of Kansas football that they watched than the one that exists right now. And so we had to build some trust with the high school coaches. We had to build some trust with families and show through our commitment and the commitment the university and our athletic administrations made to Kansas football that we are a program that they want to come play for. And I also think the neat thing about this 26 class is that I feel like they've kind of grown up with us, right? They were here with the before we renovated our football facility. Then they came and met us in the indoor when we were there for 7 months, and that was home. And then and when they took some of these guys, when they took their first time they came on campus and stuff, they took hard hat tours of our facility right there. And and then they've seen the stadium, what it was, and they've seen a stadium that didn't exist because it was demoed. And they came back this fall and got a chance to be in the stadium, the reimagined booths. I really feel neat about that part of it, the connection we've had with the 26 class, because they've kind of been through the transformation with us in the Commitment University. So that's been fun. And hopefully this is something that, for us as a program, we makes a statement to other kids that this is a great opportunity here. This is a place you ought to go to school.
How cool was that then, the opener against Fresno State? Because obviously it's great to watch the current team out there at the new booth and all of that, but also you got to see the faces of all these guys in the recruiting class who had committed when they were looking at drawings and renderings and hard hat tours, and getting them to come into the stadium and watch football played where they'll get a chance to play football.
Well, back in June when they took their official visits, when we went up to show them to our performance dining area, the Jayhawk Club where our team eats, that was a hard hat. That was a hard hat tour. They had long pants on. They had to have shoes on, and then now they come back and they're on the field in the booth, right, for our opener. So for them, it was kind of exciting and neat, right, that they had a chance to do that, and I thought that was pretty cool that they could experience the first game in the booth with our current team. Yeah.
I was down at Hunter Higgins's announcement when he committed to Kansas, and one of the things that Coach Pfeiffer at Maize South said was, he said that Hunter was almost freakishly coachable. He brought up a moment when Hunter was a freshman where you're kind of teaching him, how to take on blocks with your hands. And Hunter kind of stopped the drill and said, should my hand be here or should it be like a couple inches over this way? When you have a guy like Hunter that has the talent and the frame and the things that he does, and you add that level of coachability where he's willing to listen, he can put things into practice, what does that do for his sort of chances to develop and become a good player at Kansas?
Well, I think it magnifies his chances, right? It really gives him a great, because when you have ability, right, and then you have really good work ethic, and then you really want to be really good at your craft, right? And you will put the time in to do that and ask the questions to be able to be really good at your craft. That just gives you a great chance to be really be a terrific player. And we're high on Hunter, as we are a lot of guys in this class. And he came out early and committed to us like he did. And that made a statement also, I think, for the rest of this class, that this is a great place to be, and come join us.
It seems really important for you guys to be able to get your hands on the quarterbacks that you're evaluating, and getting to see Jalen in camp the way that you did, where he didn't have an offer. He came in, he camped, he worked with Coach Zabrowski. You guys were able to evaluate him in person, see how he dealt with all of that stuff. What kind of tool was that for you to be able to see him? And also, what's it say about Jalen that he can go into, you hate to say a pressure-packed environment, but a situation where he probably knows, hey, I'm throwing for my scholarship today, and to see him play that well?
Well, I think for any position, when you get a chance to have one of your coaches work with them directly in a camp environment, right, I think that's, invaluable to have happen. And I think it's invaluable for the kid, right, because he gets a chance to work with the guy that's going to potentially be his position coach. So how does he teach? How do I respond to him? All those things are important, right? I think it's evaluation on both ends, but for a quarterback in particular, right, you want to see those guys throw. I mean, and you want to get a chance to work with them. You want to get a chance to talk to them about a route on the field, and then have them come back and throw that route, and be able to, are they coachable, right? They take teaching. If you're going to correct something in their footwork or something like that, how do they respond to that? And so I think that Jim, like anybody, puts a lot of stock into that. But just like anybody that any position, any guy that wants to get better. I mean, Josh Galbraith came to our camp last summer. He earned a scholarship the summer before, right? But then came back to our camp this summer to get a chance to work with Chris Simpson, right? And if you go down the list of guys here, I think if I look at the list, right, I mean, Jalen was in our camp, Tyron Parker, Nate Sims came to camp. Jack came to camp here, right? Snyder's came to our camp. Hunter's been in our camp. Joe Credit was in our camp. Galbraith was in our camp. I mean, that's invaluable to have those guys in your camp. You get a real live evaluation of them in person. They get to work with you, and the personalities kind of start meshing of the position coach and our staff with a player, and I think this speaks volume to that if guys come to our camp and do a good job, there could be some rewards for that.
One of my favorite parts of this class is sort of the guys you got in that front seven. When you look at kind of even what you've stacked with previous classes too, when you look at adding Hunter, when you look at adding Drayden Punt, Quayne Carter is a guy with a lot of wrestling ability and quickness on the interior, and then you move back a level and you have Josh Galbraith, you have Joseph Credit, who I think is almost criminally underrated. I guess how do you feel about that group and sort of maybe those guys helping to set the tone for your defense for years to come if they
I think
come in and work?
You obviously want to shore up your lines on both sides of the ball. 3 high school offensive linemen here, right? That we like a lot, and we had a chance to see Malachi work in the jamborees, right, in Indiana, which they now put on, which is a great thing that they do. They're spring recruiting. We got to see Caden Moody. Oklahoma has spring practice. Got to see him practice. Like I said, Caden Snyder was in our camp. So you feel like you have a good evaluation of those guys and able to see them work. And then on the flip side, right, Hunter being around us a lot in the Quayne, they have spring practice in Oklahoma. And Coach Panagos, Jim really loves wrestlers, right? And how they play with leverage, how they compete. And he does a great job with that. And then we went and got a chance to investigate, Drayden, and to use a guy that kind of maybe was flying under the radar, but we're really high on him and his potential and his traits that he has. So he's a basketball guy, right, and runs the court well. And so, and the other thing we have in this group, we have some guys that are play multiple sports, right, which is, really, really good. We love guys that play multiple sports. We love guys that do those types of things, and that they like to be competitors, right? They like to compete, and we want to make sure we have a team of competitors.
Speaking of multiple sport guys, Caden Snyder, it's fun to watch him play basketball because you would think for a guy with his frame, he would be a guy that would just stand under the basket. I think he had like 5 3-pointers in a game a year ago. You see that basketball background come out on the field with his mobility, don't you? And the way that
with his movement skills, right, and his feet, you definitely see that.
And Caden Moody is also a guy that seems like he moves really well, and you see that a lot with him playing defense, even at times.
Yeah, being both two-way player for his team sometimes. And again, we had a chance to watch him in spring practice, and watch him do things which, is great to do, and you get to see him compete and work. And sometimes I think you get more out of watching a practice at times when you can than maybe watching a kid in the game, because you get to really see. Him work at different things in practice, right? Different movements, different and what kind of teammate he is, and what kind of work ethic he is through a 2-hour practice or plus. Yeah.
You guys ask your running backs to do a lot, in terms of catching the ball out of the backfield, protection, running the ball. Corey feels like he checks all those boxes, especially you see him in high school, even splitting out as like an X or a Z at times. What was that evaluation like with Corey, and how excited are you about him coming in?
Well, it's a unique evaluation with Corey because obviously his family had done the same block as Terry Samuel and his family when Terry was coaching at Michigan State, and the families knew each other, right? So so we feel like we maybe know as much about Corey as anybody in the class based on that relationship, based on Terry knowing him when he was kind of so high, right? And so I really think. But he does a lot of things and does a lot of things well. I mean, this morning he signed at 7 his time, 6 ours, and he told Jonathan he was going to get up early and get a workout in before signing. I told Jonathan, be sure to let the kid know I'm not going to get a workout in before he signs. I need to be my energy for today. And but he's a guy with a really high work ethic, really motivated to be a really good player, and has a great skill set. He said to catch the ball. to block, and obviously to run. And he's coming in mid-semester. As I think 13 of these guys will be here at mid-year, and that's terrific. It's going to be great to get them into our program and get them into our academically assimilated, strength program wise, into our culture, and obviously then once we start practicing, into the football part of it.
With the mid-year guys, some of them talk about, I want to play early. I want to play early. I'm going up because I want to play early. What do they have to do? Like, what is that process in order for them to not just say, hey, I want to play early, but actually come out on the other end and be somebody that can impact the 2026 Kansas Jayhawks?
I usually tell guys about playing early. I usually feel like just three things that have to happen. One, you have to get an opportunity, right? To do that. And the way we practice, our practice model here at Kansas gives guys opportunities, right? Because we are fast-paced, multiple huddles, a lot of repetitions going on during practice. So guys are going to get their opportunities in practice every day. And that's how you get better. You get better through repetition. You have to learn what to do, right? I mean, if you don't learn what to do, you're uncertain about what you're doing, you're not going to play fast. And if you can't play fast, you're not going to kind of reach your potential as quick as you want.
Yeah.
And so I have great confidence that our staff is going to teach the guys what to do and how to do it. And then the repetitions in practice will carry that over. And then lastly, you got to have ability, right? That's kind of, it's got to go all meet up. And I'm sure strongly about the ability level of these guys, but above all, I think our practice model will give these guys a great opportunity to keep improving, to get better. And that's how you kind of, build confidence also with yourself.
Just
go about it.
Just a couple more questions for me. One, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but you've been at this long enough to know that it used to be if you lost a guy close to signing day, you were up a creek. You were in a bad situation because then you're looking around to see who can we try and pull from somewhere. Can we pull anybody? Are we having to go really far down on our board? Is it even worth it at that point? Now you've got the portal. And so what is that process like? Let's just throw out random player X, a linebacker decommits a week before signing day. What's that process like where you decide, are we going to go to another high school player here, or are we going to go ahead and feel like we have better options to attack this spot in the portal with maybe even?
I think today's era of college football, if you lose a guy that close to signing date, the one thing you don't have to do is go reach for someone that you maybe don't have the same belief in.
Sure.
If there's someone that you've recruited the whole time and you have a belief in, and you lose a player at that position, you could say, hey, let's see if Johnny, would want to come to Kansas. Right. But right now with, like I said, as the era we're in right now, you can say, okay, we lost a guy to a certain position. We're just going to go, we'll go into, the kind of transfer portal season as it's called. And we'll see if we can find somebody that will be able to help our team in the same way or even more. So then or quicker than maybe a younger guy will. So we kind of look at it that way, both approaches. I can remember, night before signing it, within a 2-day period before signing it, when our staff was at Buffalo, we lost 4 players to Power 5 programs. At that time, it was Power 5. And I mean, one, I guess we were doing a great job because we had Power 5 schools poach us, but that was harder to recover from than it would be now.
Yeah, I remember covering Coach Mangino, and he had a class at KU where some guys backed out kind of late. And at that signing day, he said the quote that I'll never forget, where he says, "There's 2 types of commitment in the world. There's the commitment that a man has, like with his wife, where it's, hey, this is forever. We're actually doing this." And there's a college football recruiting commitment, which is there is a slightly increased likelihood that you will be coming to spend your time with me. And so never forget that part.
I learned a lot my first young age, at a younger age, that a commitment means we have a great chance to get them.
Yeah, for sure. The other question I had, and I'll finish up with this one, a really strong group of pass catchers. If you kind of lump in the wide receivers and the tight ends, and 4 of those guys are local. When you look at Tyron, Nate, obviously Corbin being the one guy that's not a local guy, and then the tight ends, Jack and Kevin. Can you maybe sum up that group a little bit and what you see from that group and maybe what those guys can bring?
Yeah, it's pretty cool if you start in the tight end world, right? Kevin being from Rockhurst, Jack being from Black County, and I think that those are two really good high school, tight ends coming into your program, right? And I mean that's really exciting for us, and they're both we consider local players, right? And that's pretty cool. And what we do with our tight ends from a multiplicity standpoint, formations, having multiple tight ends in there at the same time. I mean, we feel like they fit everything we do, and they've been around a lot, right? I mean, they've been able to be here, watch practice. We've gotten to know them really well, and we think they're going to fit in really well with us. And both, obviously, again, you're talking about both basketball players, both multi-sport guys, right? I mean, Jack's still playing for a state championship this week, and so we're really excited about those two. And then at the receiver position, obviously Nate and Tyron, our local guys, been here quite a bit, but Corbin's been around. Corbin's been in our camp. Corbin comes from a terrific high school program. They're still playing right in the semifinals this week. So, I mean, we just feel like we've got some guys that are going to add to us in different ways, right? And be able to do some things for us as we, offensively, right? Are continuing to do things from multiple personnel groupings, multiple formations, and put guys in the best position to help our offense and help our team.
Well, thanks so much for joining me, Rob. And for the rest of you out there, stick around after the break. We'll get into the Missouri High School State Championship games, which does include, as Rob mentioned, one Kansas signee looking to add to his ring collection.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
This is the Verbal Commitment Podcast on KCSN. You can follow along with us on Twitter/X at verbalcommit_KC for clips from the show, conversations about local players, and even the odd highlight. Before we get into those Missouri State Championship games, congratulations to the Kansas State champions, including Cape and Mount Carmel in Class 4A, Salina Central in Class 5A, and Manhattan in Class 6A. We'll talk more about those teams and how they measured against our predictions, how those state playoffs weighed out on next week's show when we talk sort of all things Kansas high school football. Ryan, 3 Kansas City area schools are competing for state championships this weekend in Missouri's 3 biggest classes. Kearney in Class 4, Platte County in Class 5, and Lee Summit in Class 6. Let's go ahead and start with the Kearney Bulldogs, who are looking to complete an undefeated season with a matchup against Hannibal.
Yeah, I mean, Hannibal took care of business against St. Mary's, so that one caught my attention right away. But this is a Kearney team that you and I have felt like, even going back to the preseason, was built for this moment.
Yes.
Carter Temple is playing unbelievable. I'll tell you, the guy that I keep hearing, through the high school folks that I talk with, especially now that it's postseason awards time, Isaac Beaver has just been unbelievable for that defense. It's an offensive line that I don't think gets enough credit, and they've got just enough skill makers to make the whole thing go. So I like Kearney in this one. And again, similar to what we're going to say about the Class 5 team, this is pretty much a home game. No more are the, granted, the Hannibal's not necessarily St. Louis, are they? I think they're more middle of the road Missouri. But anyway, it's no longer the home games for St. Louis anymore. And granted, it hadn't been in the Dome for a while, but even in Columbia, it felt a little bit more neutral. Well, now after all those years, Kansas City finally gets the ones that's like, no, you got to come to our side of the state. So for Kearney, not a very far drive at all for them to go down to St. Joe, and they'll be rocking, because again, this was a team that was on the doorstep a year ago. Now they're there. All they got to do is finish it. And I feel like with Carter Temple on offense, Isaac Beaver on defense, they've got 2 kind of stalwarts to lead the charge.
Ryan, did both of us pick Kearney to win this title?
We did.
Bulldogs are right there. And there is the graphic if you want to look at how we are doing how we did in the state of Kansas, and then I guess how we are doing right now in the state of Missouri. Ryan, Kearney's your one team left from the Missouri side. I have Kearney and a team playing in that Class 5 game. And so let's go ahead and jump there. In Class 5, Platte County puts its 27-game winning streak on the line against a tough 12-1 Carthage team coming off of a rough and tumble 20-8 victory over Cardinal Ritter. That makes you sit up as well when you saw that result. Ryan, how do the Pirates find a way to capture their second consecutive state title here?
Well, I think first off, I wanted to go back to Carthage for a second. Really solid team. You had mentioned that the game against Ritter, to hold Ritter and that explosive offense to 8 points says a lot about the Carthage defense. Earlier in the year, they gave Nixa all they could handle for, I want to say, 3 quarters, certainly a half. So they're rough and tumble. Here's the thing, though. To me, we've been saying this. I think I clipped it on social media already. Like, if Platte County gets to the state championship, I'm not picking against Platte County. Like, you're crazy. I talked about the drive for Kearney. This is like a hop, skip, and a jump from Platte County to St. Joe to play at Mo West. The entire community is going to be out there. I feel like the big monkey on their back was getting back to the state championship. Yeah. Now that they're there, I almost feel like they're playing with house money. I think Bill Utz and company aren't even thinking about, the record that's at stake. They know they've cleared every hurdle that folks like me thought might, trip them up. They're playing at an unbelievable level. Their defense is playing with a lot of confidence. So look, I think Carthage has had a really good season. I think they're probably a better team than maybe most in the area and around the state believed them to be, maybe coming into the playoffs. But I think this is Platte County all the way. And I'm not saying that they're just going to drudge Carthage. But again, this was the worst team that you wanted to see at state is Platte County. Obviously a team that Carthage will be motivated to beat, but that is a much heavier task than I think they're willing to admit.
I'm glad you brought up the Platte County defense because the offense gets so many accolades, and rightfully so. But when we saw them against Rockhurst, they don't win that game if the defense doesn't hold up the way that it did, while the offense is kind of finding its sea legs. And so this is a very, very complete Platte County team. Got playmakers kind of all over the place. Special group of kids, too. Real chance here for them to wind up winning 28 straight games and put 2 different state title rings on their fingers.
Well, and real quick, I know that there's a lot of folks that it's like, hey, Saturday is my day dedicated to college football or college basketball. If you're in the metro and your Friday night is open, Platte County and Carthage is on Friday night. Get on up to Mo West. It will be an electric atmosphere at Mo West. Wear black, wear orange, and wear a pirate eye patch if you have one. Maybe old Halloween costume or something. You'll fit right in. You will fit right in.
Make one, right? You use what you got at home. We're all about not having to spend that extra money. If you got to cut some old clothes or something, just make the eye patch work. Remember me saying that Carthage only has 1 loss this year? That defeat, as you said, came to a 13-0 Nixa team that will play Lee Summit for the Class 6 title. The 9-4 Tigers, they're the underdogs in this matchup. I don't think there's any secret about that. But Ryan, this Lee Summit team is starting to feel a little bit like that whole team of destiny thing. Dropped 4 games to start the year, haven't lost since, have run off 9 straight wins. Wound up, I think, beating, was it Liberty that they lost to early and then beat again, or was it Liberty North?
Liberty North.
Liberty North, thank you.
Liberty. Sorry. They lost to both of them in the regular season.
Yeah.
They got revenge on Liberty.
Revenge on Liberty in the playoffs. This is a team that's playing really good football. They're really mentally tough, I think, right now. They've fallen behind and had some comebacks. But I think for them to keep up with this Nixa team, Ryan, they can't afford to fall behind this Nixa team and count on a comeback. I think they're going to need to stay in it from sort of the word go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot will rely on Preston Hatfield, keeping him going. He's been unbelievable ever since he's come back to full strength. The guy, though, that has really been the motor here is Karsten Feeney. And I say that not actually as much on offense, but on defense. Really shook up Jackson with a couple big hits in that semifinal game that, you start to have some receivers and some running backs kind of checking themselves in the open field a little bit, maybe even before they have the ball. He's just been unbelievable. But we've talked about this team and how they're just led by a really good group of guys. I mean, we were at the game against Liberty North. Trujillo is a tight end that can kind of catch you by surprise at times. You've got Feeney, you've got both Hatfields. Dayton Masters goes both ways at times. Benassi goes both ways at times. Will Seiler. Everybody's going to be talking about Jackson Cantwell going into this game, rightfully so. Number one. Is he still the number one player in the country? Number one offensive lineman in the country by some scout outlets. Will Seiler could be the offensive lineman that people are talking about coming out of this game. He is a really, really good junior for Lee Summit that I think is going to pick up some considerable Power 4 attention when it's all said and done. So they've got the pieces. And like you said, Kevin, they're just playing with such confidence right now. I think that they can beat you in multiple ways, and I think they can come at you in multiple ways. It'll be real easy, I think, for Nixa to maybe overlook them a little bit. But again, this is a Lee Summit team that's riding a wave out of their region, and then they take down Jackson, who took down CBC. They have beaten some really good teams on this road, and so I'm not going to put it past them to up in Nixa and capture a state championship, because I just feel like they're riding with that kind of momentum right now.
We love interacting with people who enjoy watching the show and following local high school recruiting. And I say that because I got a question from Jamie Kerr on Twitter/X asking, are you familiar with Carson Feeney? I'm curious as to your thoughts as to why he doesn't have a bigger offer. And I think that's a fair question, because when we've seen Lee Summit, you hate to say straw that stirs the drink, the engine, whatever, but he is so important to what Lee Summit has been and to the state title run.
Well, here's what's interesting is when we've watched Carson in person, you get why maybe there were some teams that at the highest level, maybe that kind of were a little hesitant there, because there are some moments when maybe he isn't the fastest, maybe he is a little bit stiffer. But that was when we were viewing him as a receiver. Yeah. And you and I had always kind of said, like, be curious to see like what he could do on defense.
Yes.
And this year there were moments, and now it's become a regular like happenstance, where they needed him to play defense. And like I said, now he's starting on defense, and go figure, he's making a bigger impact, I think, on defense this year than maybe even on offense, without maybe the quarterback to unload it to him as a receiver and a vertical threat. Look, he was a good receiver,
yes,
getting deep. But, the route tree and stuff like that, I think, going to a Northwest Missouri State made a lot of sense for him to be able to develop and become a little bit better there. But again, now that you're seeing what he can do on defense, now it's like our Power 4 starting, I shouldn't say Power 4s, our FBS schools starting to kind of go, maybe we should have FCS schools. Maybe we should have. Is Northwest Missouri State, Kevin, going, gosh, if he doesn't work out at wide receiver, I think we got a hell of a safety. He's been that level of athlete on the defense this year.
Well, keep an eye on Carson Feeney, and keep an eye on all those games in general this weekend, as that trio of Kansas City area squads have a chance to add to their trophy cases. And thanks to all of you for watching this special National Signing Day edition of the Verbal Commitment Podcast here on KCSN. Thanks to all of you for following along. If you enjoyed what you saw or heard, leave us a comment or review, like this video, subscribe here on YouTube, or hit us with a 5-star rating if you're listening on an audio platform. And until next time, we'll see you on the trail, and take care.